they picked up several transfers, including Robert Simmons from Lee, who's a 4-star corner. And Sandalwood, the problem with them is it's not that they ever lack talent. I could honestly make a case that Sandalwood, and just overall talent, is probably the strongest Duval public that they have right now. The problem is, even with the talent, for some reason their coaching, they just never seem to really put it together and be that successful program that makes that deep run.
Sandalwood's very talented. From what I've noticed the last few years, it's just the district games is where the struggle's at. But they definitely have some of the greatest talent. And like I told you, it is spread out in the county this year. And again, it's anybody's game, to win the conference. That's just the way Jacksonville is. No matter the negatives, positives, it's anybody's game. And there's actually a few teams where I wouldn't say they might win the conference either, but I think there'll be some teams that were having some struggles in the past that could be looking to be, putting on at least maybe making the bottom seed to the playoffs or so. I mean, there's teams that have potential.
Yeah, that is one thing I will say that Jacksonville does have going for them this year, is it does feel like it's more balanced than normal. But I did see Raines, Fletcher, and Sandwood round out your top 5. My top 5 was a little different. I had Raines at the top spot because when I look at the publics coming in, even though Sandwood has probably the most talent, I feel more confident with Raines because they're not that far behind in talent. But they do seem to be a bit more consistent of a program when it comes to their coaching, even though they are replacing their a coach from this past year. But if I remember correctly, they hired from within, so I don't think there'll be much of a change with the program.
Yeah, there shouldn't be too many changes. I know there's been some head coaching changes. I think both Raines and Rebolt head coaches, they're in their first year, and if that Northwest Classic game should happen this year, I think Raines and Rebolt, it'll be a very close game this year when they do play, kind of like last year. And I actually watched the game on television last year, and it was fun. It was actually a very fun game to watch, and I'm really, like I said, I'll be very curious even with the new head coaches, just to see how far they come, how far they go into, if they make playoffs. And like I said, the point is the talent is so spread out. It's anybody's year. We could be wrong with our predictions on who might win it, who might not win.
I know we discussed a little bit about me having Terry Parker as my number 2 team for the Gateway Conference. I'm sure that probably would be one of those picks that'd be way out there. But with Terry Parker and Westside, who I have at 3, both of them, they rose up big time last year, making their first playoff appearances in a while. They really seem to be 2 teams that they've grown the talent from within their program. They've finally been able to keep the talent in the building, and it feels like they're finally starting to build on a foundation. I feel like they're going to be like the 2 of those publics that are going to be the team to watch going forward over the next few years.
Oh yeah. Last year they've seen a lot of great, I'm trying to find the words to put it. They've shown a lot of progress, like a lot more strength than they have in the past, and it's good to see that those 2 have made that progress. And there's actually another school I'd like to add, which I know they haven't been talked about as much in the last few years, and they've been looked down on, but they actually have potential to make the playoffs. Wolfson, last year they had a pretty good season, I would say, with their record, and they almost made the playoffs, but they couldn't, unfortunately, based off the point system. But I feel like with the way things are going on out there, and after this 2-year cycle's over, they could have a stronger schedule, and they could, who knows, they might be, they'll be back in the playoffs, and they may, they could have a long run. Like, they are on the come up, I would say, kind of like how Westside and Terry Parker have shown now, Like, they're another team I would say they'll maybe watch out for.
You did mention with Wolfson, they were 8-2 last year, and they missed out to a 5-5 Trinity Christian team. But if we're being honest, looking at Wilson's schedule, even though they were 8-2, I would probably pick Trinity Christian to beating them by at least 24 points if they actually played.
And like I said, and I told you, especially with the people who will be listening to it, yeah, strength of schedule does matter as well too. But you also got to look at despite playoffs and not playoffs, because I'm more of a person who likes to see progress when it comes to sports teams, whether if they go in the playoffs or not. But watching them, especially other than Westside and Terry Parker as well, they have shown progress as a team as well. Like they've really been getting it to they've been really putting it together, you know. And I know what really kind of, I would say, kind of put them on the downside a little bit is when they lost to rival Inglewood at the end of the season, which both teams are pretty equally talented as well. But it's just great to see, you know, some of these area teams, you know, especially ones who've struggled in a while, they finally get those pieces together, you know, and then they start making their school look good, and also making the county look good, especially if you make the playoffs. And Wilson's definitely a team that has the potential of making playoffs this upcoming season.
I agree with that. And also, I guess with the rounding out the top 5 for me was Sandalwood and Jacksonville Lee. The biggest thing, though, of course, like with Sandalwood, I feel like if they had more, if they did more with their talent, they probably could have been at the number 1 spot. But I'm worried right now, like after seeing them basically underutilize their talent for as long as they have, I'm basically with the impression of I'll believe it when I see it.
Yep,
and
I can agree with that as well.
And with Jacksonville Lee, as I already mentioned, with Simmons transferring out, I believe they also had Kobe Bates transfer to Oakleaf. They had Devin Smith, the linebacker, transfer to Oakleaf. 3-star safety Larry Smith transferred to Oakleaf. I just feel like Lee's lost a lot of talent this offseason. And could they still make something from what they have? Absolutely, but I do feel like some people in Jacksonville in general are probably pushing them up higher than they really should be at this point. I think they're relying too much on just the fact that they think they can just replace talent with ease. But if we look at Lee's overall track record as a program, they have some good years for a short period of time, and then there's a lot of bad years. I wouldn't really be the type of person to just automatically assume that they're going to just be able to replace all that talent. And I would not be surprised if they really drop off after Singletary graduates after next year.
Oh yeah, like I said, you can't really assume that easy. But it is what it is. You know, like I said, it's anybody's year. But also, I was also going to ask you, just if the schedule did not change, or even though they're looking at making schedule changes because of coronavirus, do you have any games you would you consider must sees for like any of these schools at all?
Honestly, I'm not as familiar with the Jacksonville schools and their schedules, so I guess I'll stick with what I have with Columbia. I saw that 2 games that I know for sure are locked in is Trinity Christian on September 25th over in Jacksonville. That would definitely be a top-tier game because you're probably looking at 2 teams that are obviously top 50 in the state of Florida. Then we have the game with Gainesville, which is a rivalry game. But there's obviously the game still up in the air. I heard that Middleburg and Madison are supposed to stay on our schedule, which leaves the question, does Jacksonville Lee stay on the schedule? I've been trying to find out for a good portion today, trying to find someone that might have the information. I've yet to figure out, will we end up playing Lee or will that game become a casualty? The biggest thing that I'm looking at is, does Duval County decide for the public schools to go to a Gateway Conference only schedule? which
Right.
would eliminate the league game.
And if the schedule stays as normal, which, like I said, we don't know how that's going to run, I've got 3 games I'd like to name this year that would be must-watch, and one of them is Reigns and Reball, the Northwest Classic, of course. It should be a close game, and Reball is starting to get better as a team as well, from what I've heard. There's been a lot of talk about how Reball might be a pretty good team this year, So it should be a very close game. Another one I would like to add, which I heard was like an addition to their schedule, Lee and West Nassau. I think that will be a really good game. And West Nassau is usually a pretty strong team. They've shown a lot of strength with their schedule and their players. Like they are a team to I think they are a force to be reckoned with. And then another one I would like to add as well is Bartram Trail and Oakley, which it'll probably be down to those two on who would win the district if the district thing was to still happen, because those two schools are very strong as well. They're probably those two teams are top 25 in the whole state right now, I would say, preseason wise.
That was the one game that I was, as soon as we started talking about the Jacksonville area, that was the one game I started thinking about that I would definitely have that one circled in red, that obviously if there are fans allowed and that game happens, people in the Jacksonville area need to go watch that game, because you're looking at the 2 best quarterbacks in Northeast Florida. Bartram Trail had that transfer that came up from Palm Beach County. Santino Marusi, if I probably pronounced his name wrong, but I'm sure anyone that looks it up, you'll look up his tape. Top-notch quarterback, a 3-star quarterback. He's committed to Wake Forest, I believe. And then Walter Simmons, 3-star quarterback out of Oakleaf, who's obviously had a lot of local talent transfer in to play with him for his senior year. Those two, and I actually had them side by side at 13 and 14 in my statewide preseason poll. If there's any game in Northeast Florida to watch, you're looking at the best team in St. Johns County, the best team in Clay County, the 2 best teams in Northeast Florida. Definitely a game to watch. I'm not sure what the scheduling is going to be between those 2 counties, but I really hope that that game stays on the schedule, even though districts are gone.
Yeah, and like I said, I wish the whole district thing would stay too, because now everything's confusing. But that's just one game. That's where I think people outside of those 2 schools should go see it. I mean, it's a big deal, and I know Oakleaf, they've had struggles in the past as well compared to Bartram, but those 2 teams, man, you put those 2 together, and it should make up for a legit big battle, because those 2 schools, man, they've got strength still. They also both have great coaching staffs on both sides as well. It is like one of those games in college, you want to see one school from one conference and then the other one from a different conference that's so strong. You just wish to see these 2 play as non-conference or whatever, because they're really good. It's like battle of titans. You know what I'm saying?
I agree with that. I think the main reason the districts end up being a casualty is because I think you have to look at also for some of the larger districts, like for Hillsborough County, for example, there's some districts in there, 7, 8, 9 teams in there. It was just going to be unrealistic to be able to play all the district games. So at that point, because they had to shorten some of the season, that's probably why the districts got canceled. It's just they weren't going to have any time to play every district game.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, honestly, when it comes to districts, I think there's a few down there. I think the most they've had is 7 in that district. I think there should be no more than 6 teams in the district, I think, no matter what, because that can get kind of confusing as well.
The only downside I think there is sometimes to that is it's geographically it's impossible to have a complete 100% balance without changing the classifications around and maybe even removing a classification.
Right, but like I said, it's all about you just got to be organized. Make it as organized as possible like I said, it's